that's that's what you have to do. You have to go all in on something that you really know about, and at the end of the day, you have to have the confidence in yourself that you're going to see it through. And I think that's one of the major things that a successful entrepreneur has to have.
Welcome to RealTalk. Today's guest is the CEO and broker of real estate company that helps people buy, sell, and manage large buildings using smart technology. He's been in real estate for over 10 years with properties in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Before that, he worked in IT and now uses that experience to run a faster, smarter business. We're going to hear his story, how he got started, the challenges he faced, the lessons he learned, and what he's building next. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Great, thanks for having me.
Great. So, Anthony, you started out as in IT. What did you hate about that job?
So I didn't hate my job in IT. I actually enjoyed it. So I started my career, I got a computer science degree at St. John's. I started working at BlackRock Financial. I started on the desktop support team that moved into telecom once voice over IP came in. And then I did a lot of audio visual stuff. And then that led to going to some large law firms in Newark where I got married and I moved to Newark. So I was pretty much an IT manager at two of the larger law firms in New Jersey, and I actually enjoyed that. I wasn't really in the knee deep engineering side of the IT, although I knew enough to speak to those guys. I was more on the managerial side where we found problems and we just find a way to solve those problems. So that's what I was always great at, was problem solving. So I enjoyed that part of it. Did I love it? Like, oh my God, I was like skipping to work? No, I'm not gonna say that, but I enjoyed it. Um, but what happened was, in 2011, my wife came home and said she was pregnant. So at that point, I realized I had to make some more money. So at that point, I started learning about real estate and I started investing in multifamily properties here in Newark, New Jersey. And once I started doing that, once I got into real estate, I found my passion, which was, I liked IT, I loved real estate. So that was a transition from IT to real estate.
Great. That was my actually next question I was thinking of. Like, what happened that made you say, okay, I want to do something totally different? So, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, that was it. So I mean, we were living, an okay life. I was living actually in a three family. So we bought a brand new three family to live in. So I was already kind of, investing slash house hacking, right? Although it was before house hacking was a thing. But I was already a manager, a property manager, or a real estate investor at that point, but not really doing it, just kind of living there. But once my wife came home and told me she was pregnant, at that point, my head started going, and I needed to just make more money. I wanted to make sure we were living a better life and just a more passive income. So yeah, like I said, I started just reading and learning about it, and I liquidated all of my IRA funds, all of our 401k, took all of our retirement money, pulled it out, and started investing in real estate.
great. So you mentioned about Newark. So what did you feel or see in Newark that made you say, this is the place I want to build something?
So fortunately, my wife is born and raised here in Newark, New Jersey. She was in the Ironbound section of Newark, which is, the better part of the city. But so I started getting to know Newark as we started dating. And over the, 5 or 10 years of us dating, I already saw the transition happening. And then as I started learning about real estate and what actually makes a great real estate investment, I saw that Newark had everything you needed to be a great place to invest, right? So it has all the transportation. So you have an airport, you have a major rail system, you have subways, you have buses, you have all of that necessary. You have one of the second largest port in the US is in Newark. You have 40,000 students that are coming to Newark every day. And then you also have a great hospital system. So there's hospitals here. So you have everything you need to be a successful real estate investor. And so that's why. And me living here, I just saw, the slow climb coming, and then you had kind of COVID that kind of dropped everybody. So, we had to go through that. But, once we got that little blip, everything just really started ramping back up. So, I mean, and on top of that, it's interesting, Amazon had this um, big national search for their next headquarters, and Newark was one of the top 5 locations that they chose. Actually, in some circles, they said that we were in the top 3. And the reason was not only did you have all of that, but it sits on a very good technology infrastructure. Newark sits on the largest dark fiber network in the nation. So you have that, you have Audible that's here, you have Panasonic that's here. So you have a lot of companies that are already seeing that. Some are starting to call it the Silicon Valley of the East. There's a lot of venture capital coming here as well. So there's a lot of things happening here that I don't think it's known on the national scale yet. So I was on a previous podcast and I kind of said like we're doing this, but I think we're about to have our hockey stick moment where everyone starts to realize it, all that money starts going in. And if you're familiar with other New Jersey cities like Hoboken and Jersey City, which have gone crazy, I think Newark is going to have its day soon.
Amazing. So you mentioned earlier you liquidated your funds to start investing. What pushed you to take that kind of big risk? And like, how was the transition? Like, was it scary? Like, how was it?
It was scary, but it was less scary because, like I said, and I gloss over it, but I mean, I really dove into educating myself, not just about real estate, but about money and how other companies have done it and what makes a successful person, right? So I found out how Warren Buffett, Mark Cuban, the Fords, like how did all these ultra successful, ultra wealthy people get there? None of them got there with an IRA or 401k. None of them, right? So I knew that the money that was in there wasn't going to serve me well at all. But what I did know is that all of them took their money at some point and they had something that they were passionate about, they knew a lot about, and they pretty much went all in on that, right? And so that's that's what you have to do. You have to go all in on something that you really know about, and at the end of the day, you have to have the confidence in yourself that you're going to see it through. And I think that's one of the major things that a successful entrepreneur has to have. You have to have the utmost self confidence in yourself because there's going to be many times where you're doubting and things aren't going right, and you just got to keep on just making that next best step. What can I do right now that's going to make me get my next paycheck or get me to the next level that I need to go? But yeah, that's all it really came down to. When you educate yourself to the point where you're doing the right thing, as long as you know you're doing the right thing and you just go all in on that and yourself.
Great. So was there a moment like it was a scary transition you started, you were in IT and then you got into real estate. So was there a moment when you thought this is a bigger than I expected? And what did you do next?
So I was lucky. I was fortunate in that the company that I was working for, Gibbons Law Firm, they were great with me. So I started investing and I was investing for about a year or two. And at that point, I kind of figured I'm like, okay, I need to let them know that I'm going to be leaving soon. So I went in to give my pretty much my 2 weeks notice and they my boss was pretty much like, hey, there's no rush, like what's your plan, do you have to leave now or can we do this slowly and we can kind of transition so you can help hire the person that we need to come in, you can train them. And I thought that was all fair. I was like, sure, I can do that. So I mean, what I thought I'd be done in 2 weeks to a month was pretty much a 6 month to 1 year transition period where I was able to work 20 hours a week. So I was still able to get, a stable paycheck and I controlled the hours, right? So I was able to say, I'm going to work these many hours this week. So I was able to be at my properties, check the renovations we were doing. And it was just great. And I was lucky because I was able to control my exit. Not many people have that. Some people, you just got to like cut the cord and jump. I didn't have to do that, so that was fortunate for me. But I was ready to do it, right? Because you never know when you have that conversation with your boss, right? You're like, "Hey, I'm gonna put in, my 2 weeks," and I was hoping they would give me a little transition period, but you never know. They might say, "Okay, no, we don't need it. Thank you. We'll find somebody else." So I was ready to jump, but luckily I was able to have a nice long transition, and it got to a point where I was like, "Listen, I'm not doing anything here. So I might as well go now because the person I had hired and trained, they're great. I was literally sitting on my desk doing real estate stuff for the 20 hours a week. So I almost felt bad collecting that paycheck for the last like month or two.
Great. So you were lucky. So when you bought your first few properties, what was the challenging part? Like, I spoke with one of the developer, and he mentioned like when he started as a real estate agent, and he was supposed to send few contracts, then it took him like four tries to send the first contract. So as an investor, like when you bought your first few properties, what was the challenges that you had to?
The challenge is you don't know what you don't know, right? Although I said I educated myself, I read a lot, 30, 40, 50 books, but you could read as many books as you want and talk to as many people as you want until you actually do it. You're not going to really know what it takes to be successful in real estate. So I had the same experience. I think whoever you spoke to had. We were touring properties, we were putting in offers. I was, I wanted to do inspections. I want to do all the things where, the book said, hey, inspect, you do this, you do that. But once you get into non-retail real estate, all that stuff kind of goes out the window. And you got to, if you're going to buy these properties that are, bank owned, or if they buy a wholesaler, you got to move on quick. You don't have time to do an inspection. You don't have time to do certain things. So, I mean, a lot of good deals kind of fell apart. I would put in offers, put in deposits, and I wouldn't get it because someone else would get it. I would put in offers and I was nervous. Oh, this one has some problems. Should I really buy it? So, I was learning throughout that whole process. I mean, I liquidated everything in, I think, 2011. I didn't, no, in 2012, or maybe, oh no, I'm sorry. I liquidated everything in 2013. I didn't buy my first property until February of 2014. So I had an entire year of literally falling on my face, learning, figuring it out. Didn't get that deal. What happened there? How do I do it? So it's a process. I don't want anyone to think that it was an easy transition, right? I mean, we went from IT to real estate and it was a whole big learning curve. But again, as long as I could have easily just said, you know what, I'm not good at this real estate thing. Let me just go back to the IT. I know how to do that. I'll just keep on doing that. But I didn't. I knew I could figure it out. That's what I knew it. So, the transition period is pretty much figuring it out, learning, and then as you start talking to the right people, and they'll help you. Like my first deal, I got lucky, and I had it was a three family in downtown Newark, and I had about $80,000 that I had brought in from liquidating everything, but I didn't want to use it all. So I went to this property, and for a 20% down loan, I needed about all 80,000. But I told the agent, I said, "Hey, listen, I don't have the full 80,000, I don't know if I can get this property." She came back and she's like, "Well, how about if I ask the owner to hold the note for you?" And even at that time, you would think of all the books I read, I would know what that meant. I had no idea what holding a note meant at the time. So I said, sure, I'll let her do it if she's going to get me some money. So luckily, I had come across an agent that knew how to make a deal come together. So instead of having to put the $80,000 on that first property I bought, I only had to put 60,000 down. And then that other 20 that I had left over was the money I was able to get my next deal. So, it's one of those things where I think if you keep on pushing, you'll start coming across the right people, you'll start learning and figuring it out. So that I think persistence is all of that to say you have to be persistent and you're gonna have some challenges.
Yeah, you're completely right, and luck favors those who try. Who
I heard a great acronym for luck. It's labor under correct knowledge, right? You got to put in the labor, but you got to have the knowledge as well. So if you keep on working and you have the knowledge, you'll get to where you want to go.
True, I agree with you. So, how did your background in tech help you think differently in those early real estate days?
I don't know if it really helped me out in the early real estate days. I think the early real estate days of buying 2 and 3 unit buildings and it was the grind. I had to figure out. I did pretty much everything the same way everyone else did because I was learning from them. Where it really started helping me out is after I had a couple of buildings, after I had a couple of properties, and then I stopped using their tools on how to underwrite deals and so someone would send me a spreadsheet and I was using their spreadsheet, but after a while I'm like, I can make this spreadsheet way better than they have it. So I was becoming more efficient using the tools that other people gave me. And then where it really came into fruition when we had about already like 10 to 12 units, I was looking for a property manager. Couldn't find a good property manager. So I said, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to manage my own. And then other people started asking me to manage their property. So that's kind of the impetus and how I went from being an investor to a property manager. It was because I needed one for myself, and then other people started asking me because neither of us could find the property managers. So once you start managing properties at a scale of even just 20 to 30 to 40 units, it's a labor intensive business. And if you don't get efficient, this is why most property managers are not good. It's because they don't get efficient as fast as possible. And you'll die on all the labor intensive stuff and you're not really making money. So, right away, I mean, I only had about 20 to 25 units and we went out and started looking at some of the top property management software companies that were out there. So, and as I'm going through the process, I decided to use Appfolio property management software because it was a full suite. You got everything. A lot of the other ones, they like nickel and dime you. If you want the leasing, pay for this. If you want the maintenance, pay extra here. Appfolio gave you everything, and I like that. You can communicate, you can do maintenance, you can do leasing, you do it all. And from what I saw, I'm like, yes, this is what I need to be efficient. And I knew at that point I'm going to go from 20 units to 100 units as fast as possible. So I need this software to help me get there, right? I don't think anyone that has only 20 units under management would be making that kind of investment. So that's where, I started using stuff like that. And then again, just finding other tools out there to make it efficient. One of the other things I did, and we're going, back 8, 10 years ago, I stopped going around and collecting rent. I'm like, with all these, efficient ways of collecting rent, whether you just ACH it to me, you can PayPal it to me. I mean, now we have Venmo and all these other ones, but there was still things back in the day where you can figure out a way. So it didn't make sense for me to go knocking on 20 people's door every month. To me, that was a waste of time. And again, that's not, oh my God, AI but that's just another way of like, hey, there's these ways. I understand that you're not used to this, but let me help you figure out the best way so it's better for both of us, right? We can set up automatically to come out of your bank account, right? All the bank accounts, all the banks, you can set up an automatic, check to someone. So we did that a lot. Look, so it was all these little things we would use technology initially um, to help us out, but now, I mean, now we're knee deep in it. I mean, my company uses AI every day. We're looking at ways to try to get, like, I'd love to see all these counties and getting all the documents, all the deeds, all the mortgages, all the notes on a blockchain so that someone can just log in and you see everything for the property for the past 10 years in one place. Like, I mean, maybe I'm fast forwarding, but those are the types of things I'd like to see now. We're doing, that's where we're looking at now, where we can use, my partner is in IT as well. He was in IT for 20 years before he got into real estate as well. We kind of had the same kind of background, went from IT into real estate. So a lot of it blends. But yeah, with AI now, and the blockchain. I know blockchain and NFTs kind of had their day and fell apart, but I think the blockchain and NFTs, whatever it's called, I think it's got to have a rebrand. But I think that technology will have a huge impact on the real estate market because I think everything in real estate will live on the blockchain one day, and we'll just be able to log in somewhere and we'll be able to see it all. And I'd love to. That's one of the things I try to think about. How can we make that? So if there's someone out there, like one of your listeners, or like an engineer that can put the technical side of it together, I'd love to speak to that person because I have the contacts at the counties and maybe at the banks and like I, I I just don't know anyone yet that can do all the technical side of it, but I have the contacts at the counties to at least get the deeds and inspections and all those things. I think it'd be a good marriage if maybe you know someone. You're probably in that world more than I am at this point.
Great. You mentioned you build your own company. What were the biggest challenges in doing that, like that you faced?
Well, it's the same challenges every company faces, right? It's pretty much overhead, cash flow, hiring, all those things that when it was just me, it was fine. But only me, I could manage 20, 30, maybe even 40 units by myself with that folio. I can get it done. But once you start adding people to the mix, then the whole other things start coming into play of making sure you hire the right person as a small business. And then once you get that rolling, then you got to hire more people, and then you got to get payroll, and then you got to get insurance for them, like all the things of that normal businesses deal with, I had to deal with. But again, luckily I had a portfolio of multifamily properties that was pretty much backing my business, right? Like I didn't have to make money on the property management side. It was something I needed. So it was fueling my investing business. So it could hopefully break even. I mean, it lost money for probably for the first 2 or 3 years, but all the prop and even to this day, my property management business just needs to break even, but it fuels my investing business where that's the actual engine that makes the money. And when I need to infuse some money back, I use the proceeds from the properties to push the management business. And that's the way it's been. Like I said, property management, it's a really, really tough game. So, and then just to kind of finish the story so we were investors, then we just did property management. In 2020, I got my broker's license. So as of right now, we're a full service brokerage. We do the buys, we do the sales, but we do, a lot of like just helping other investors either start, like get their first property, renovate it, get tenants in there, manage it, do the whole thing, and then they can get their next one and build their portfolio. Or what we're getting a lot now are large multifamily investors where they have, 80, 100 units, 200 units. And that may sound like a big portfolio to some people, but in the real world of real estate or multifamily real estate, that's small. And there's no property management companies really to serve them. CBRE, JLL, Cushman, they don't want a 200 unit portfolio. They want 1,000 units. So we've kind of fit into that niche of investors that don't want to be vertically integrated, right? They didn't buy real estate to be property managers. They bought real estate because they want the real estate income. So we can help them get from 80 units to 1,000 units, and they don't have to deal with the nuances or pretty much the BS of the property management. We can take that off their hands, and they can just keep on pushing and buying the real estate that they want to buy.
Sure. Great. So your company is called Tech Forward. So what are some smart tools or systems that you use that save time and making things easier?
Well, I use it every day. What it helped out a lot initially was proposals. I had, AI was writing all our proposals. AI was drafting all of our contracts. AI was drafting, like, especially in property management, like you get frustrated, you got to write an email back. So it's like, oh, am I saying it the right way? And like, you know, ChatGPT or whatever would like I want to say this firmly, but in a nice tone. Like, and what would normally take me 10 minutes to write an email took 30 seconds. Those are the easy ways to do it. And then started using that in social media where we're putting posts out there and we would write the verbiage, or it would say, hey, give me 10 ideas that I could be, using for my company to grow. And it would throw out 10 ideas. Oh, awesome. Let's use 3 of these. Um, but now we're using it a lot for underwriting. So we'll say, hey, we have this property. These are the numbers. Can you give me a best case scenario, worst case scenario, and a little middle? And then, me and my partner will look at it. We'll say, okay, this is what I think will look, and we'll use AI to give us those 3 scenarios to see if, where we're differing. Um, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the ways. And like I said, the blockchain and the NFT stuff, that's where I'm seeing it in the future. Something I'd like to be a part of, putting all the real estate stuff in one place, because real estate is one of the most antiquated old businesses left out there, right? I mean, technology has gotten a hold of a lot of different industries. What it hasn't really gotten a hold of is real estate and education. Those two are like still stuck in like the 1970s that they haven't really pushed through. And so I think the people that can figure those things out will really do well. if they can get technology really ingrained and kind of push out the old guard that doesn't want to let things go and really push um, technology into those two industries, I think they'll do really, really well.
You're right. You're completely right. So, uh, as you mentioned about, and I think you love the technology. So, what are your thoughts on using techs like smart locks, automated parking, or energy saving systems in buildings? Are they worth it for developers?
Definitely. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, we use that stuff all the time. So I mean, we're using smart locks. We're using the building systems where, we can let Amazon in or UPS in without having to have an on-site person, right? Because if you have a 25 unit building, it might not make sense to have someone there all the time, right? The numbers don't make sense. So if you have, a smart system in the front where they can just put in a code in, you have your room with a camera, and so all these things you can put in, such as cameras, smart locks, and even from a management perspective, right? The smart locks are huge because how many people lose their keys, or you get that 2 o'clock in the morning call that they don't have their key, and it's like, okay, now I just log in. Okay, what unit are you? 502. Okay, boom, you're in. So I can do that from my house instead of having to call someone up or me get up and go open the door for them. So I'm a big fan of all of those things. Whatever's gonna make us more efficient here. I do that in my office. I mean, I'm one of the only people, like, we got smart locks in the office, so we know who's coming in and out. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of all of that technology. And the interesting one that's starting to come around is the 3D printing for developers. I mean, that's a game changer. If you can literally put a machine in the middle of your land, right? And it's gonna do the foundation, and then it puts the cutouts for the windows. And then, I mean, and then it starts just laying all the cement out for you. I mean, that's huge. You're saving so much time, energy, effort. It's working 24/7. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of all of it.
Great. So, do you see tech playing a bigger role in keeping costs down or improving service for tenants?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's why it and if I can be more specific, right? Again, the property management business is so labor intensive. Another thing that we've been messing with a lot are just agents, right? So with all of our tenants, all of our vendors, and all of our owners, like, they'll send us text messages like, "Hey, this is broken," or, "Hey, can you please send me my report for this month on my income and expenses?" Like, all of those things that comes into, whether they text or email it to us, it comes to a distribution list, and then it sends it to all of us, and then somebody kind of jumps on it and takes care of it. Well, why shouldn't all of those come into one agent? And if the agent has hooks into our property management software, they can literally go find that report and just email it right back to them without touching any of us, right? If it's a maintenance request, these already exist out there. I mean, we've been testing a few of these companies, but an email comes in that my toilet is broken. Okay, when did it break? Is it leaking? Like, it already starts sending back all the proper questions, and then once it has all the information necessary, it opens up a ticket in our system. And not only does it just open up the ticket, it already knows, okay, these are the top three plumbers we send it to. We'll send it to this person first. So it's already doing all the work in the middle that would take us, just hours that we don't need. So that's exactly how I'll scale from. Well, and we've already used some technology to get from 100 units to 500 units. We're at 500 units now. What we're talking about, all of this stuff here, it'll get us from 500 units to 2,000, with maybe adding one or two people, where 10 years ago, going from 500 units to 2,000 meant you had to probably hire 5% people.
All right. So, for developers today, what's the hardest part of starting a new project?
The hardest part are making the numbers work. That's the hardest part right now, between construction costs, interest rates, and just dealing with everything. I mean, just even the soft costs are getting out of control. Architects are more expensive. I mean, after the pandemic, there was so much money being thrown around that everyone's prices went up, including ours of managing property, right? So I can't complain too much because we've benefited a little. Um, but the fact that everyone's cost prices went up, and they really haven't corrected much. Everyone's kind of maintained because the real estate market really didn't hit a crash, right? Maybe if we would have had a crash, things would have kind of reset. But we never had that crash. Things kind of slowed down a little bit on the larger commercial side, but the pricing hasn't come down really. So, just for architectural services, when we were pricing that out a couple years ago to what it is now, it's a lot higher. So it's tough making the numbers work. So you find yourself, and this is we find ourselves looking at some government sponsored um, projects, affordable. We're doing a 100% affordable project right now just so we can get a lot of the funds and maybe not have to raise as much capital and not bring in partners. So, you know, uh, the hardest part right now is making the numbers work in development. And obviously it depends which sector you're in, right? Because on top of that, making the numbers work. And then also banks are only lending 60, 65, 70% loan to value. So even if you can get the numbers to work, right, you got to have that 25, 30, 35% liquid to get the financing that you need. Or again, you're bringing in partners, you're doing a syndication. So, it's a tough environment, and you're seeing that because the commercial real estate market is kind of slowing. Industrial's been kind of slowing down. Multifamily steady. That's why I like multifamily. I mean, it's just a steady. We had peaks like it went crazy a couple of times, but it never really goes down. People always need a place to live. I say this all the time. I said this the other day. I mean, every apartment, no matter how bad it is, no matter what location it is, every apartment is an upgrade for someone. Even if it's the worst apartment in the worst area, that's an upgrade for someone that's homeless, right? So every apartment is an upgrade for someone. So if you keep on building quality apartments, you'll always find someone to be in there.
True. So as you mentioned about the funding, so is funding the right investors or funding still a big challenge?
I think it is. I think financing, raising capital, until you've done it and done it a lot. So we've done it for a while. You see, I'm in kind of a transition period in my career. My first one or two, three deals, it was mostly my money. And I got to the point where the next 10 deals, I didn't have to use my money at all for those smaller multifamily deals because I had proven I can do it. And so I was pretty much using other people's money for that. But now we're in the process, we're in a transition. We sold all of our smaller properties. Now we're getting into the bigger ones. The people I use to help me finance those, they're not writing $1 million checks, $2 million checks, $5 million checks. So now I have to build that relationship with other people now. So now we're in the process of getting our development experience done. So I'm going to have to do a deal or two or three with my own money or with some people that I wrangle together that trust me and I have some resources. But I got to get a couple deals of the larger ones done under my belt, and then once I get those done, then I'll be able to get, you know, raise capital a lot easier. Um, but again, even with that said, like we have a deal that's a really really good deal. If you have a really good deal, there's never an issue finding the money, right? So that's really what it comes down to. But then therein lies the problem, right? There aren't many really good deals out there. It's the people that have the properties have these great interest rates, so they're not interested in selling them. The ones that are in trouble, the banks have been kind of working with them because they don't want to, just start foreclosing on everyone. So we're in this weird period where, you know, this we're not things aren't falling apart, so that banks aren't just putting their hands back. Everyone's kind of working with each other that are in trouble. And then the banks are tighter for new projects, right? So that's what I mean. You have to bring 30, 35% to the table. So again, for the big boys that they're liquid and they're the ones, and that's why again, a smaller investor such as myself, we don't see the best of the best. We're seeing really good deals. Don't get me wrong, our pipeline's better now than it's ever been. But the guys that have all the capital, the guys that have all the resources, they snatch up all the great stuff, and then we gotta have to figure out, what we can get on the lower pecking order until we can get there.
Sure, and you will. So, what mistakes do you see developers make when they're trying to raise money?
The biggest mistake, and this is why there's a lot of syndicators in trouble right now. They are very aggressive when they're doing their numbers. right? I mean, I saw a bunch of these deals. So I invest. I'll be an LP in some deals, and or from 2021 through 24, the deals I was looking at. I mean, the numbers were so aggressive that I mean, again, some of them worked out because again, if you did it in 21, 22, and 23 was still okay. But that same deal in 2023 that you needed a 3 to 5 year hold, those deals are all in trouble right now. So what I think is the biggest problem with developers are they are just doing their numbers way too aggressively. And then when it comes time to lease their buildings, those rent comps aren't there because they had these huge rent numbers that they need to make the numbers work. And then the bank starts calling saying, hey, why aren't you getting these numbers? Um, and I actually have clients such as these where we're renting 70, 80 unit, 100 unit buildings where, you know, I talk to the owner and they're like, hey, we need to get these numbers. I look at them, I'm like, I'm sorry, these are not the numbers you're going to get in this environment right now. You're just not going to get them. We had 2,000 units come online over the past 2 years. Now there's much more supply in the market, so you're not going to get what you thought you were going to get. It's just different, and that's just it's a real conversation that developers have to have with themselves. That you know maybe you pass on the deal. If the like I said, we this is what we do, right? We have an aggressive approach, we have a conservative approach, and we have our middle. Like if all things like the normal approach to everything, if all those scenarios, if the numbers still work, then we'll do it. And at the end of the day, if you can make the deal work at conservative numbers, then you move forward. If the deal only works on your aggressive time frame, not on your middle of the road time frame, not time frame, your middle of the road numbers, then you shouldn't do the deal. You shouldn't do the deal. Think well, and that'll lead into the other problem that I think developers, but I think this is everyone, right? Entrepreneurs, and I'll put myself in there, but you live and learn. We're not patient. Developers have to be patient. It's a long game. So if you're going to do your numbers aggressively now, and next thing you know, in 3 to 5 years, you're struggling, then how are you going to get to your next couple of deals, right? You don't have to do 2 or 3 deals. You can do one good deal. If you do one great deal a year, you'll be super successful. But these developers now they want to have 3 and 4 projects at the same time because they want to, put it on their Instagram and LinkedIn and make them look like superstars. When at the end of the day, you just need one solid deal a year, and that's something I learned by being a Warren Buffett fanatic. Right? He's like, I let a lot of balls go by, but I just need to do one great deal. And he didn't say he's like, if I do one a year, he's like, I'll wait. He'll wait 2, 3, 4 years, but he waits for that really good pitch and then he swings.
Right. So, how do you build trust with investors who may not be familiar with the city like Newark?
You got to be able to tell the story. I've been telling the Newark story for a long time now. And, you got to be able to articulate that story and answer the basic questions that are going to come with it. But at the end of the day, you got to follow it up with numbers, right? Listen, we're IT guys, we're numbers guys. So at the end of the day, you can have the best story, but Newark, the proof is in the pudding by now. The numbers are there. I've done successful deals. I've been investing here in Newark for over 10 years, and I have the numbers to prove it. So on top of the fact that the story's there, and then you have proof that you've done deals, and then it's not just to say that other people have done deals. The question is, how do you build trust? Like, I need you to invest in me first, and I'm investing in Newark. So more importantly than investing in an area, it's the person that you're investing with is the most important thing, right? So I can prove that Newark's successful. Here are the numbers and the story to prove that Newark has been successful for the past 10 years. And then here's my numbers, my investments, and what I've done over the past 10 years to prove that I'm successful. And that's why you should give me $1 million.
You're completely right. I mean, because they're doing business with you, they need to trust you first. So, what systems or
That's the front.
habits? True, true. So, what systems or habits help you stay on track as things got?
Um, so I mean, the calendar has been like I used to not prioritize my calendar. and I would just take calls or take meetings and just disregard my calendar for a long time. Um, what I do now is my calendar is the authority. I'll put in time to get back to people that called me or respond to emails or do stuff like that. Like I don't. What I used to do is I would just come in the office and just get on email. Next thing you know, it's 11 o'clock and you haven't done anything, right? Because you go one email comes to another, and then someone replies, and next thing you know, you can waste your entire day just getting back on email. So what I've done is I've really put my calendar in a place that's as efficient as possible. So I have weekly meetings with my team, monthly meetings with my team, quarterly meetings, and my team knows that these meetings are a priority. So it's not, oh, I can't make it. Like these are the priority meetings we have to make sure we do on a weekly, monthly, and quarterly basis to ensure that the business is going forward, the projects are moving forward. And then we put everything else in around that, right? So you do your business development, you do your marketing, you do your HR stuff. Like this is all stuff I have to deal with, right? Fortunately, now we have people to handle these things, right? So I have a finance person that does our HR and our payroll and finance stuff. I have a property manager that's handling all the property management stuff. I have an office manager that's handling all the office stuff. But I have to know what's going on. So I meet with them regularly and we have to know what's going on, and that's how I stay in tune with everything they're doing. And then aside from that, I have, you know, I'm going to take this hour and I'm going to get on CoStar and look for deals. Or I saw these deals come into my inbox. Let me look at these deals that just came in. Um, it's not perfect, right? Obviously, priorities come in. I put a post on Instagram recently of I went on ChatGPT and I said, can you give me an action figure, a picture of an action figure of me with a firefighter suit with a Dalmatian, two cell phones, some blueprints, and everything. And it came with this really cool picture of me being a firefighter with MIG on it, because that's sometimes what I feel like every day. I'm a firefighter, right? If a fire comes up, it's nice to have a calendar, but it doesn't matter if you have this big, huge problem that comes up. So all that to say, calendar is my big thing that I make sure you know that keeps me efficient on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I remember that picture because that's the first post that I saw on your profile. It showed on my feed, and that's how I looked into your profile.
Look,
So
that's nice.
how do you know when it's time to
But,
take?
but wait,
Sorry?
really quickly, right? This is a technology forward podcast about real estate, right? So that's a perfect example of how AI helped me with my marketing to put it out there on LinkedIn and got a hold of you that you've never heard of me ever, right? So that's in that just little scenario example is how someone that doesn't have to be a technologist. You go on ChatGPT, say, hey, make a picture of this, and you just post it on LinkedIn, Instagram, or wherever, and you may get someone, a nice qualified guy to reach out to you and say, hey, would you mind being on my podcast?
You're right. You're right. You never know. I mean, that's what I read. Like people will never know until you tell them. Like you gotta just do something, post something, and using technology, making things easier for you. That's another edge we have. As in, we have AI now.
You know what an interesting thing is? Like people that know me now, they think I'm this outgoing, front of the room person. And that's not me. Like I know, especially a lot of people that do IT. I'm the furthest thing from that. I'm usually the guy in the back, and I've always been my whole career, right? I've always been the guy in the back just to make sure everything's working and make sure other people look good, right? And I was very comfortable doing that. So I was never this kind of person that would be in front of a room and to do all these things. But when you start a business, you have to do it. So it's one of those things where if you're going to get into real estate, and I think this is good for your listeners, right? I'm like you guys. Like I know we like to be on the computer. We like the back of the room. We like to figure things out. But if you're going to be the number one, you're going to start a business. I'm sure you're doing this right now just by starting this podcast. You have to be loud about what you're doing, because the more people that know what you're doing, then you may get people that come out and reach out to you. But if you're not being loud about what you're doing in your company and how you can help people, then it's going to be harder for you to succeed. So that's I just wanted to say that really quick. And then I think, your listeners are like a lot like me. And when I started, I was very quiet. I mean, if you go back to my first couple of Instagram posts, I mean, you could see how nervous I was just talking to the camera because, you know, it, it didn't come natural to me. But you have to realize that it's something you have to work at, and you have to do it. If you're the number one, it's your company. And it's just like working out. Just keep on doing more reps, more reps, more reps, and it gets easier and easier.
True. The more you do it, and the interesting part is the first guest that I had on my podcast, he approached me actually. He messaged me, and then I was like, okay, how about I would like to invite you on my podcast. Would you be interested? And he was like, yeah, sure. And that's how it happened. Yeah.
Yeah,
I started
that's
posting my videos, solo videos, talking about cash flow or talking about real estate NOI and all those things. And somebody saw my video and they messaged me about one of their project or they wanted to talk about, and it led to a podcast.
perfect. That's great. That is great.
So,
And but
mm, so how do you know when it's time to take on to your next big project?
so this is interesting. That's a good question. When you get comfortable, right? If you're an entrepreneur and you really love this, if you're comfortable and how I say, like, I'm a firefighter, if you find that you have like a week and everything is just calm and slow, and you really don't have a lot going on, then it's time to take on something new, or push, or get another project. Because if you're not pushing, then you're not growing, right? It's good to get to a point where things, and I'm not saying you always want to be hair on fire. Like, we've actually slowed down some of our marketing because our pipeline is good and we're in a good place, and I'm trying to raise capital. Like, but again, we're still busy and crazy. We have a lot going on, but I think you have to keep on pushing. Some people want calm and relax. If you're a real estate investor, that's not the world. If you're calm and relaxed, then you're not pushing, really pushing it. And again, it's different for everyone. If you want to just have a few properties and be calm, then that's okay. But if you really want to push and be at the higher end, or really like doing a lot, or I guess be super successful. I'm trying to find the right word, but I guess it's just for me. I'll answer for me. For me, when things are calm for a long time, I know I have to kind of push, and usually something comes across my desk. I don't have to go look for it, right? So, I'll mention. I told you about my partner, that he's in real estate. He's done syndications, but he's also had a 20-year IT career for the VA, and I mean, he's managed, literally, and this is gonna sound crazy, but he's managed $1 billion projects because the VA is that big, the Veterans Affairs for the government. And we had that coming together moment, and something that what we're gonna do together is kind of what I mentioned earlier. We're gonna do that, like, real estate prop tech arm of MIG. Like, we're going to start incubating some something here that, when both of us come together, like, I wouldn't be able to do this by myself, right? Because I'm too far into other things, and but me and him together, we can kind of brainstorm something, put it together, and then go, right? There's, between the agent stuff, we're talking about property management. We already spoke to a couple of companies with the green technologies and all the efficiencies that come with HVAC and plumbing and electric and all that. Like, there's so much happening so quickly. We want to have that R&D part of the company, that we're testing 4, 5, 6, 10 products at a time, or incubating our own, right? So maybe that would be the platform, the blockchain, putting the deeds on the blockchain. But that's something that we want to do. And I mean, that's going to take a lot of time, because I know where that can go to. But part of a service that I want to give to my clients, my large building owners, is to say, hey, you know, you're doing your next project. Have you looked at this HVAC system that does this, this, and this, can save you X, blah, blah, blah? That's going to be my differentiator, right? I mean, if they have 2,000, 5,000 units, have CBRE or JLL that has, everything. How do I differentiate myself? that's why I say that's why my tagline is in my website is technology forward. We are going to be that. We're going to be the real estate technology company that, at least if you hire us, everything we're doing is efficient and we can help you be efficient as well.
Best of luck for that. So you've been investing in Newark for a long time. What changes have you seen in the community?
The changes are you can see it just driving down Newark, right? So you have huge buildings being erected right now. So you have it's the Halo building is going to be it's one of three buildings that are going to be built. We're talking about 30, 40 stories, three, 400 units, and there'll be two more coming right next to it. You have another developer, Barai and Shack, that are building these huge skyscrapers. You have KS. So we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that are actually being used right now here. So you can see it now. 5 years ago, 8 years ago, all those plans were being put through the planning and zoning board, but no one was building them. So that was always the problem. Like everyone's putting these plans, getting all the approvals. Everyone was like, "Yeah, no, it's gonna go crazy." But how come we don't see any cranes? How come no one's building? And all they were doing was flipping the contract to someone else. And so the difference now, and it's been within the past 3 years, now the developers are actually building it. Now they're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're getting, you see cranes out there, and it's happening. On top of that, been a lot of renovations of like some of the really amazing historical buildings that we have here. So those have been really nice as well. And this is anecdotal, but this is kind of when I realized I think Newark was really having that change and going in the right direction. Five, if 5 to 10 years ago, I would drive a lot through because where I'm at is the east part of Newark. A lot of my investments were in the north. So I would literally drive through downtown multiple times per day and on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. Something was going on, I would drive through. When I went through downtown Newark on Saturdays and Sundays, 5, 7, 10 years ago, it was a ghost town. No one would be there, right? Because you only had the companies that were there and people would go there and they would go home. So downtown was literally a ghost town 5, 7, 10 years ago. You drive through there now with the past 2 to 3 years, you drive through on a Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. You see people outside walking their dogs. They're at the park. They're buying coffee at the Starbucks. So it's anecdotal, but again, I see it because I drive through there so much. I started with just a few people, and then it's more, and it's more, and that's why these larger developers are coming and building because the people are coming. So it's the process, right? So it's always the units come before the businesses because the business don't come until you have the people. So it's always the the developers that get started, the early adopters, I guess you can call them. They start building first, and then the people come like, oh wow, it's working. Then the larger developers come with the really big money. They keep on building more apartments, and then that's when the companies and the small businesses and everything start happening. So we're in the company/small business part of it now, right? We've already proven that people will live here if you build nice housing and you market it right. Now there's a bunch of companies coming here. You're getting small businesses. So we have Starbucks, we have Nike, we have Panera Bread, we have Cold Stone, we have all these larger Chick-fil-A, all these national brands that have come to Newark within the past like 2 or 3 years.
Amazing. So, what's one project that really made you proud, not just for profit, but for the people living there?
Me personally, or one that I'm seeing.
You personally.
So me personally, well, I'm in the process of developing a 15 unit, 100% affordable project. Um, and that the arc of that was I bought a 21 unit, fully approved market rate project. And going back on the conversation we had earlier, couldn't make the numbers work. Again, I could have been aggressive and pushed it, but I'm like, just me and my partner were talking like the numbers don't work. It didn't fit the conservative model just didn't work. Right. So we're like, okay, we moved it down to 18 units. Maybe we do less units. And maybe it'll work out. And they got a little bit better than numbers because we got larger units, we can get more rent, and it was that was that, but it still didn't work. So like, you know what? We wound up doing some homework, and a friend of mine came over. He's like, "Hey, there's a like a small affordable housing program in New Jersey called the AHTF, Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So it's for development projects 25 units or lower. There's all these parameters you have to fall into." And so we looked into that and we said, you know what, this makes sense. This makes sense. So well, we've changed that project now, and it was always, it started with 20 units of residential and a commercial. So it was always mixed use. So what we're going to turn it into is 15 units of residential above, and the commercial, we're going to open up a laundromat there because we know that there's not a, a good laundromat within probably like a quarter of a mile radius. And that's a lot for a laundromat in an urban area. So when we have already 15 units above, when we first bought the project, it did come with laundry, but we pulled the laundry out of the units, and we're going to and do that. And that's something I'm really excited about building right now because I think, affordable housing gets a bad rap. And I with with the project, what we're getting from the state, and then the second, well, it's gonna be a first lien bank financing that we get, the numbers make sense. And so I'm not gonna make a crazy amount of money of this right away. What we'll be able to do is build this and not have to bring in any partners, which is nice. I don't have to go raise capital. I don't have to go out to get any partners. Me and my partner will do this on our own. We'll be able to get it done. And again, it checks the box of a development that I need to get under my belt. But I want to do affordable housing in Newark in a way that it's not stigmatized, or it's not, we're going to do nice. So I'm not going to do crazy nice, but it's going to be nicer than what most affordable housing is. And I think once we make this work and we can show that it works, it's something I'd love to do it in some other urban cities around New Jersey, and then maybe even take this to other major cities, around the country, Chicago, LA, Miami, who knows? So that's something we're really excited about. And I'm pretty sure all these other states have programs like that. But even if not, we can kind of expand it and use LIHTC. LIHTC's like the big affordable housing funds you can get. Um, yeah, that's a project I'm really excited about, and we're looking to get the shovel in the ground soon.
Great, amazing. So let's talk about some daily things. So, what does a typical day look like for you now? Can you walk me through what do you usually do every day?
It's a good question because and that's one of the things I love about my job, right? My day is really not mundane at all. Things are pretty different on a day to day basis. But to answer your question directly, what I want to make sure I do every day is that I get up. I usually separate the first hour of my day to learn something, right? So, I'll get into the office around 8:30, just kind of do whatever I need to do from 9 to 10. That's in my calendar every day. From 9 to 10, it literally says read and learn. But it's either I'm reading a book that I'm reading, or if there's some kind of new technology I want to learn, I'll do that. Or if I want to jump on AI and play with AI for an hour, I'm going to learn the first hour of my day. And again, prioritize it. Unless it's a super emergency, my staff knows not to bother me. And then at 10 o'clock, I usually like to do my meetings early, like if I'm going to be doing any kind of like meetings. So I'll meet with my staff for whatever stuff, or if I'm going to be doing any biz dev stuff. That's why I wanted to do this around this time, because I like to get these types of things done, before lunchtime, before 1 o'clock. And then after 1 o'clock is when I want to, more biz dev stuff. I want to make calls to clients. I want to see how the projects are doing. Um, I'll look at the social media side of things and see if I can post something or do something on the social media side of things. Um, and yeah, and then obviously in between all of that is when things come in. But that's structurally in my head. That's how I like my day to go. I want to learn right away. I want to have the core of things that I need to do, the meetings and stuff in the morning, have lunch, and then after that, it's more like calm coasting, but it's more like interacting with clients, interacting with prospects, interacting with, either doing some social media stuff, getting out there, maybe making some phone calls. So that's what I'll do in the afternoon.
Great. So, what are some real problems or challenges you still face day to day as a business owner and investor?
I'm trying to think of something that's different, right? Because again, It's all the same stuff. It's if I wish I could cut myself in half and do everything, right? I mean, you want to do so many things, but there's only 24 hours in the day. I I'm not one of those people that I'm burning the midnight oil and I'm here till 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock. I'm not on the Elon like sleep on the floor um time. I have three little girls and a wife, so I try to be home at a decent time around like 6:30. So for me, the biggest thing is the most important thing for me is hiring. I want to make sure I have a good team. So, I don't have to be working or doing so many things. I can kind of like just kind of play quarterback. Hey, this came in. Can you take care of this? Can you take care of that? I mean, luckily we've gotten the business to the point where it's running pretty smooth. I'd love to just right now, the biggest problem I think is just how long it takes to get projects off the ground. Right? That's the biggest issue, right? If I had to really put one thing, and this is something Newark has to work on, it's not just Newark, it's a lot of uh just what the urban cities have this issue, but even the non-urban cities, it takes too long. It takes too long to get a project from beginning to end on the development side. It shouldn't take a year and a half to get a shovel in the ground. That's my biggest issue. I would have loved to have like the project I just told you about. I'd love to have already had that shovel in the ground, 3 months ago. I bought the property a year ago. I bought the property a year ago. It shouldn't take me a year to get to where I'm at right now. You know? So yeah, that's my biggest issue. If I had to name one, I think the time it takes to get a development project through to get started.
Could you tell me about like what's something that makes it longer to start a project? Is it the paperwork or is it the development side? Or
It's definitely the time it takes to get things done through the city. So you have your, well, it starts with who your professionals are, right? Because your architect, your attorney, and all of that, they can really hold you up too if they're super busy or if you're not a priority for them, right? So that was a lot of the problems I had early on when you're just getting started. Like you're like the bottom of the barrel to the attorneys, like because again, you want to work with good attorneys, you want to work with good architects. So that can already push your timeline back, just getting your architecturals and your legal stuff in the all set. And then once you get that, you got to put your paperwork into the city, and then you got to wait for your planning board or your zoning board. So that takes a month, maybe 2 months to get a meeting, right? And then once you go there, they go, oh, well, you have to do this and you have to do that. So you have to go back to your legal and your architect, get all that fixed that they complain, and then wait another month or two to get another meeting, right? And then let's say that other meeting, they go, okay, yes, everything is approved. You're good. Your project's approved. Okay, great. Now you think you're just going to apply for permits and go. No, you have something called resolution compliance. And then you got to get now to your construction drawings done too. So you're doing all this other legal and architectural and engineering work. So now your paperwork goes to the engineering department, the plumbing department, you know, the all in you're going to get your pilot, right? Because every project needs a pilot now. So you have paperwork in 4 or 5 different departments at the city, and they don't do a good job of communicating with each other. So it's like this person's on their own timeline. So by the time you get all of that back and then finally get to an approval to get started, and then with that, then you got to start lining up all your subs and start going there too. So and and now it's not as bad, but a year or two ago, all everyone was just busy. So even though the city was just like the city was one big cog, it takes a while to get through the city. But even your attorney, your architect, they were taking a while, and then your subs would be like, "Yeah, man, I'm too busy. I won't be able to get to your job for another 2 or 3 months." So, um, I mean, there's got to be a way. I mean, again, that's it. I mean, the government has to figure out how to get things done a little more efficiently. And to be honest, I think everyone does.
yeah, right. So if someone wants to start investing or building today, what's the first thing they should learn?
Well, it depends where they're starting from. If they're kind of like where I was, where literally you're an IT guy and you want to start developing, you need to learn. You need to read those 30, 40 books. And it's not just about development. You need to learn how money works. You need to learn how the banking system works. You need to learn how to run a business. Because again, you're just not developing. You're running a business. Like you're gonna need people around you. That's the other part. You have to figure out your team, right? So step one is learn. learn the business, learn about money, and get that part, and learn about the mindset too. Again, like read about entrepreneurs, figure out, like get on get listen to podcasts and like YouTube videos of how investors and business people, entrepreneurs think, because it's completely different. Like if you're going from the 9 to 5 world and you're going to be an entrepreneur, you really do need to listen to other entrepreneurs and let them answer questions, and you can see how they think about things, because it's completely different than the rest of the world, like the typical 9 to 5 person. So until you get there where you're thinking like they think, you're not ready again. And that doesn't take long. I mean, it depends how fast you want to go. And then once you feel like you got all that down, you got to build the right team. You need to get a really good attorney. You need to get a really good banker. You need to get a really good mortgage person. And if you're just coming out and you're going to do, multifamily, you need a property manager, real estate agent. Build your team as fast as possible, because the minute you find a good deal, and I'm assuming you have money, I mean, all that other stuff, but once you find a good deal, it's very hard to find the people after you already have the deal. You want to have your team set. So once you find the deal, you can execute on that deal quickly, right? If you find the deal, but you don't have a good mortgage person and a good banker, then that deal's going to fall apart, because you got to have everything lined up. If it's a good deal, you got to move quickly. So you want to build your team. So learn, build your team. And then once you build your team and you feel like you're ready, just put your head down and go.
Great advice. So, what's one mistake you made earlier that turned out into a big lesson?
So it's cutting corners, cutting corners. Like, in the beginning, money's tight, and you don't buy the best materials. You don't hire the best contractors, because you have 3 contractors, right? You have the super expensive guy. You have this guy still pretty expensive, and wow, this guy's really cheap. Well, he can't do a horrible job, so he should be fine. You hire the cheap contractor, and then you go in there and everything's fine for 3 months, and then you realize, he didn't do a good job, and now you have to go back, hire another one. Cutting corners in the beginning, and that's a tough one, because I know that it's tight in the beginning. It's tight. So you feel like you have to cut corners, but um, this goes back to the other thing I said, is it's about being patient. I wasn't patient in the beginning. I wanted to do 4 deals at the same time, right? I did one, I did two, and then once we did, and then I had 3 properties in a year. I had bought 3 properties in 1 year, and they all went well. So once I did that, I'm like, oh man, this is easy, right? I started doing 3 and 4 at the same time. And then that's when things got really out of control. Robbing Peter to pay Paul here, taking rent from here, doing all of this. And if I could look back, if I can go back and talk to my younger self, my 10 years back, I would say, Anthony, you don't have to do 4. Just do one really good one really good one. And then when you're done with that one, do the other one. Or maybe, and then when you're finishing this one, then get the next one. You don't have to do, and it's because I saw other people doing 3 and 4, and you think everything's working out, but then you come to realize like they're struggling too. So everyone's just trying to keep up with other people, and you don't have to. So I would say, don't cut corners and be patient. That would be my biggest advice to myself going back 10 years.
I mean, that's what I was about to ask. Like, if you had to start over today, what would you do differently?
That's it. Just be patient. Be patient. You'll get there. There really is no rush. No rush. And I was thinking back, I thought I started investing when I was like 32, 33 years old. I thought I was like behind the 8 ball. Okay. Could you see these 18, 20, 23 year olds, and they're doing well, but who cares? Like, again, this is the way I think now at 43, but I didn't think this way at 33, right? But, I just be patient. Who cares? It doesn't matter where anyone else is. Put your blinders on. Just do you, and there's really no rush. Because again, some of those 4 projects I did, they all made money, but they could have made more. I was super stressed out. It was a strain on like my relationship and stuff. So it's all those other things. It's not just about the money you make, right? You're doing this because you enjoy it, and it shouldn't be a headache, right? So just don't, there's no need to push. Right? And it's funny because I said it kind of contradicts what I said earlier. When I'm calm is when, but you can push without kind of going crazy, I guess is what I'm saying. It's a fine balance and everyone's different. But yeah, but the biggest thing, I guess, maybe I could have done the 4 if I didn't cut corners, right? Just do it the right way. But if you don't have the capital to not cut corners, then you need to push back. But at the end of the day, just be patient. Be patient.
You're right. You have to balance it out. So, what's one myth about real estate investing that you want to clear up for?
It is not broken toilets at 2 o'clock in the morning. Everyone talks about that mythical 2 o'clock in the morning. Someone's gonna call you with a broken toilet, and you have to get up and go fix that toilet. I've been doing this 12 years, and I've never had a 2 o'clock in the morning broken toilet story. Um, don't get me wrong. I've gotten woken up at all hours of the night, but at all those times, I've told them to do something, and I'll be there in the morning. And next time, don't call me at 2 o'clock in the morning for this. This can wait till And so it's about teaching your tenants, right? So I guess it's maybe some people would get out of their bed and go rush to something that's not important. But the myth about the 2 o'clock in the morning toilet that you have to go fix is not there. Although I do have the story of I did have to get out of my bed for a broken water heater. So the water heater was literally leaking at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I had to go there and shut the water off. So that's the one time I had to get out of my bed at in the middle of the night to fix something. But that's one time in 12 years. But yeah, listen, if you have the right team, if you have the right team in place, real estate investing is a great business. But with that said, it's not. Here's another myth. We'll knock down two. The 2 a.m. The toilet story is a myth. You don't get that as much as people think. And then the other myth is that real estate is completely passive, that you can just buy real estate and it's a completely passive thing. You'll just get your your rental income and everything will be fine. It's not that either, right? You are going to have to pay attention. You have to be on top of your team members, right? You can have the best team. You can have the best attorney. You can have the best accountant, the best property manager, the best agent. You can have the best. But if you don't stay on top of them, then your returns will suffer. Maybe you still get returns and maybe you're okay, but trust me, I've seen it and I know that if you're not engaged, your returns will suffer. So you have to be on top of your team. Look at your quarterly statements, check things out, be on top of things, ask questions. Um, but yeah, those are the two myths. The 2 a.m. toilet and real estate is not completely passive.
Amazing. It was great talking to you. So, Anthony, before we close, if our audience want to reach out to you, where they can reach out?
Sure. I'm on Instagram, MIG Properties, LinkedIn, Anthony Marin, or MIG Real Estate. You can email me directly, Anthony at MIG Properties. My website, MIG Properties. No .com, just MIG Properties. And yeah, you can reach me there.
Great. Good to have you, Anthony. It was great talking to you. This is Real Talk, where we have real talk with real people in real estate. See you next time.
Thanks.